The envelope arrived at our wedding reception at 7:43 in the evening, not through the mail, by hand. A courier in a dark jacket who walked through the side entrance of the reception hall found my father-in-law at the head table and placed it in front of him without a word. My husband's family had been laughing at me for 3 hours by that point. Not loudly, not cruelly enough that anyone outside the family would notice. The particular quiet mockery of people who believe they have made a correct assessment and are comfortable enough in that assessment to let it show in small ways, in glances, in tone, and the way my mother-in-law had introduced me to her friends earlier that evening. "This is our other daughter-in-law," she had said. "She'll never amount to anything." She said it with a small smile, as though it were fond, as though it were a joke I was in on. I was not in on the joke, but I had made a phone call that morning, and now, at 7:43, the envelope was on the table in front of my father-in-law. "My name is Margaret Ashworth. I am 36 years old. I am a structural engineer." And the evening my husband's family told 200 guests that I would never amount to anything, a courier delivered the news that I already had and had been, quietly, for 4 years. Drop your city in the comments right now. Tell me what time it is where you are. And stay with me until the end, because the look on my mother-in-law's face when my father-in-law read the contents of that envelope is something every person at that head table still remembers. My husband, Daniel Ashworth, came from a family that had clear ideas about what mattered. His father, Richard, had built a construction firm over 30 years and considered it the defining achievement of the family. His mother, Patricia, had spent the same 30 years maintaining the social architecture of their life, the dinner parties, the charitable committees, the careful management of what other people knew about the Ashworths. I did not come from their world. I had grown up modestly, put myself through university on scholarship, earned my structural engineering license through 7 years of methodical work, and spent 4 years at a firm that specialized in large-scale infrastructure projects. When Daniel and I began dating, his family was polite. When we became serious, the politeness developed a specific quality, the careful courtesy of people who have reservations they are choosing not to express directly. Patricia Ashworth expressed them indirectly. In the way she described my career to her friends, she works with buildings, some kind of technical role. In the way she said, at our engagement dinner, when she thought I was out of earshot, "She'll never be what this family needs." I heard her. I said nothing. I filed it. I want to tell you what I had been building, because it is the center of everything that followed. I want to also tell you what it was like to spend 4 years building something significant while being quietly dismissed by the people who would eventually learn about it. It was not painful in the way that loud dismissal is painful. It was the specific low-grade erosion of being consistently underestimated by people who had access to you, but had decided not to look carefully. Patricia's comments were not rare. They were a pattern. At family dinners, at gatherings, and the language she used when she described me to others. The pattern communicated something consistent. I was an acceptable addition to the family, but not a distinguished one. I listened. I went to work. I put in the hours on the proposal. I did not argue about the pattern, because arguing about a pattern is rarely productive, and I had a more complete response available to me, if I was patient. 4 years before our wedding, I had been part of a small engineering team that had submitted a proposal for a significant infrastructure contractor bridge project in the region, publicly funded with a value that placed it among the larger civil engineering projects of recent years in our state. The proposal process had taken 8 months. The review process had taken 14 more. I had been the lead structural engineer on the proposal and had spent the better part of 2 years on it while continuing my regular work. 3 weeks before our wedding, I had received word that the proposal had been selected. The contract value was $47 million. My name, as lead structural engineer, was on the contract documents. The announcement, which the funding authority had scheduled for the week following our wedding, would include the names of the project leads. I had told Daniel. He was proud and happy and understood the significance. I had asked him not to tell his family before the announcement, and he had agreed, because Daniel had a genuine respect for professional process and understood why I wanted to wait. What I had also done on the morning of our wedding was make a phone call. I had called the project coordinator at the funding authority and explained that I would appreciate a courtesy notification, a formal letter on authority letterhead delivered to the reception that evening. Not publicly announced, simply delivered. I told him where the reception was and at what time the head table would be seated. He had been gracious about it. At 7:43, while Patricia was telling a story at the head table that involved a flattering comparison between her family and another family at a nearby table, the courier arrived. The envelope was addressed to Richard Ashworth. The funding authority had addressed it to him because Richard's firm was among the local construction companies that would be eligible to bid on subcontracting work on the project, and the project coordinator had helpfully included a note to that effect along with the announcement letter. Richard opened it. He read the first paragraph. He stopped. He read it again. He looked up at me across the table. I was speaking to a guest beside me, and I did not look up immediately. I felt the moment before I saw it, the quality of silence that develops when something unexpected has entered a room and the people in the room are processing it. When I looked up, Richard was still looking at me. He had the expression of a man recalibrating a map that has turned out to be wrong about something significant. He said, "Margaret." I looked at him. He held up the letter. "Is this yours?" I said, "I believe so." He passed it down the table to Patricia. She read the opening. She read the project name. She read the contract value. She read the name of the lead structural engineer. She looked at me. I had thought about this moment several times in the weeks before the wedding. I had not planned a speech for it. I had not prepared a response for whatever Patricia would say. I had simply ensured that the information would arrive when it arrived. Patricia said nothing for a long time. The table had gone quiet in the way tables go quiet when the social current has shifted and everyone is waiting to understand the new direction. Then Patricia said, "You didn't tell us." I said, "The announcement wasn't scheduled until next week. I didn't want to get ahead of the official process." She looked at the letter again. "At the contract value," she said, in a voice that was considerably quieter than the one she had been using all evening. "This is a very significant project." I said, "Yes." Daniel, beside me, put his hand over mine on the table. He had known this was coming and had said nothing, and I loved him for the specific discipline of that. Richard said, to no one in particular, "Our firm will want to look at the subcontracting opportunities." The conversation moved, the way conversations at large tables move, into other channels. Other guests began talking. The music resumed. The evening continued. Patricia did not make any further comments about what I would or would not amount to. Not that evening, not afterward, in my hearing. The project announcement was published the following week. Daniel's family learned the full scope of what the contract represented from the public reporting. Richard called Daniel the day the announcement appeared. He had said, "Your wife's firm is going to be very prominent for the next several years." Richard was correct. The bridge is currently in its third year of construction. The timeline is on schedule. The structural design has performed as specified through the first 2 years of load testing. I think about the evening of the reception sometimes when I am reviewing site documentation, about the envelope on the table, about the particular quality of silence that develops when information arrives that changes the shape of what people thought they understood. Patricia had told 200 guests in her careful, indirect way that I would never amount to anything. She had said it at 7:15. The envelope had arrived at 7:43. 28 minutes. It was, professionally speaking, very good timing. I had not engineered the timing out of cruelty. I had simply ensured that the truth arrived at the same event where the dismissal had been delivered. The same table, the same guests, the same evening. I thought that was appropriate. I still do. Patricia and I have a functional relationship now. Not warm exactly, but functional in the way that relationships become functional when one person's estimate of another person has been substantially revised by evidence they could not ignore. She introduced me at a family event last year to someone she was meeting for the first time. "This is Margaret," she said. "Daniel's wife. She's a structural engineer." She paused. "A very good one," she said. It was not an apology, but it was the closest thing to a correction that Patricia Ashworth was capable of offering. I accepted it for what it was. Now I want to hear from you. If your husband's family had decided what you were worth before you had the chance to show them, what would you have done? Would you have argued, or would you have let the envelope speak? Tell me in the comments, and tell me the city you are watching from. I want to see how far Margaret's story has traveled. Subscribe before you go. More stories are coming that you will not want to miss.